evening. Welcome to tonight's driver's ed class. Haven't had a chance to go through every single test, but I did look at my email and see that people have completed them. For the most part, I think the scores were fairly good. It gives you some idea of how difficult answering questions can be. I think a lot of people thought the questions were going to be pretty straightforward, simple. I like to challenge people and give you information and then basically throw you some curveballs, give you some signs that you have never ever seen in your life and may never ever see, and then try to figure out what it's actually trying to communicate. Because that's really the true essence of what we're trying to do here, is to make you a knowledgeable driver when you're out there on the road 2 or 3 years from now, in a different state, in a different country, deciphering the information and figuring out what you need to do so it's not going to put you in a heap of trouble. So that's why the signs were so tricky. So if the signs what really did you in, it's not going to be that bad on the final. So I did want to let you know that. So I am waiting to see who is going to show up tonight. I know we've lost some people because of vacation. Remember, and some of you are doing it the right way, when you can't make class, I don't mind you watching later tonight, tomorrow, but I do want you to text me and let me know that you are actually watching it. If I ask questions during the session that you're watching, I want you to text me. Let's say it's tomorrow at 9:30 that you're answering the questions that we're actually covering in class, so I know that you're following all the way through. So that is good. Now, I believe there's only one of you that wasn't able to complete the midterm. There was some difficulty, and I'll try to figure that out. I haven't been able to get to the bottom of it, but what may happen is you'll just have to redo it. Technology has its glitches, so I apologize for any of you that had problems with it. That's the system that I have been working with, and I'm going to keep with it, and that's what you're going to be doing for your final. But tonight's session, which is on driving emergencies, there is a worksheet that I would like you to go to Facebook after class to do. It really kind of gets in a little bit more deeper than what you had to do for your homework. Homework was pretty simple, straightforward. Answer the questions. I think there was only like 12 or 14. Let me take a look here at the page. And basically in the chapter, 10 questions. So it was pretty simple, pretty easy. We're going to get into information tonight. I look at driving emergencies like the topic of first aid or CPR. It is a great skill to have. You really want it, and you need it in some occupations and jobs, but you may go a lifetime without ever using CPR. We're going to talk about things tonight. You may never have your hood fly up in front of you while you're driving. Okay, I've been driving over 1.5 million miles with students, and we've never had it happen. But guess what? There are people that have. So we're going to run the gamut tonight on every little tiny thing that could happen to you in your vehicle. What are the steps that you need to take to be safe and not cause a collision where you injure yourself or other people? So that's what's on the agenda. So please get out some paper and something to write with, pen or a pencil. Some of the people that have been having problems in this online format are the people that aren't taking good notes. All right. I think the homework is pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Everybody's getting the questions right. I very rarely see someone getting a question wrong. But it's the information that we're going through, the steps like last night with the steps with parking. Asking you a question on the final, you may forget something. So please write down notes. And I usually will say, this is important. I'm going to probably test you on this, so you should know this. That way you'll be able to go through your notes and restudy. But like I said, I was pretty happy with the scores. I think all but maybe 4 or 5 were in the 80s or above. There were a few in the 70s below, and some were mid 70s, which isn't really too bad. But if you're in the low 70s, and I don't know, we might have had one in the 60s. Not good. Okay, not good. Wake up call. Okay, time to pay attention. Time to get back into the program. So that's it for today. Let's kind of get right into what we're going to talk about with driving emergency. So what I want you to write down, think before you act. A driving emergency is something that is nothing planned. You don't wake up in the morning, go outside, get into your car, start her up, go down the road, and you go, you know what? I think today I'm going to have a blowout. So I better start thinking about what I need to do if my tire blows out if I go around this next corner too fast. It basically just happens. So you have to know in your mind, if something happens in the vehicle, like a blowout, what's my first step? What's my second step? What's my third step? And kind of go down, okay, the list of things that will help you recover to put yourself in a safe place. All right? Now, cars are maintained either through car inspection, so we're picking up problems before they become problems. Cars are better well built. So we're not seeing some of the driving emergencies that really you had to read about in the textbook. This textbook has been in edition since the 90s, I believe. It's been now they've updated it some. You have a more updated version, but I think the version that you have still could be 10 to 15 years old. So we're finding cars that are doing away with certain mechanical situations like carburetors and fuel injectors and things like that, and it's just not going to be a problem. So we are going to cover what it would be like in driving in some of these older vehicles, and hopefully we'll also cover some of the things that will happen when you're in some of these newer vehicles. So the first thing that they talk about is running off the pavement. Running on the pavement is probably, when you first started to drive, probably something that occurred within the first 15, 20 minutes getting out onto a main road. You probably were going straight. You were able to handle the vehicle pretty well, went into your first turn or around your first corner, and you just weren't able to keep your car on the road, and you dropped your tires off the pavement. So running off the pavement is when you're going to have your left side tires on the road, your right side tires off the road. So it gives you an uneven balance. The traction is going to be different, and there's going to be a slight pull to the car to the right. So the first thing I want you to write down is grip the steering wheel tightly, because it is going to move. The car is going to move to the right. Ease up on the gas pedal. This I do want you to write down. Okay, I'm going to just stop it right here. All driving emergencies, think about steering first. Always think about keeping your car in your lane. That should be the first thing that crosses your mind when something happens mechanically. How am I going to keep my car tracking down the road while I figure out my next step, while other people deal with what I'm dealing with? You're trying to prevent yourself from hitting other people. Okay, so think of steering first, then think pedals. So here it says ease up on the gas pedal. Now, this is a typo. It says do not step on the gas pedal suddenly. It's supposed to be do not step on the brake pedal suddenly or hard. Step on the brake pedal easy. All right? Because you've got the adrenaline going, you're going to probably hit the pedal a little bit harder than you should. Try to overcome that, because it could make the situation much, much worse. So think about easing down on the brake pedal. I've got control of my steering. Now, look in your mirrors, see if there's anybody behind you. Look what's coming towards you. And then look for a place that you can pull over to the side of the road and think about what just happened, and then come back on. Now, I'm going to show you a video where you can come back onto the pavement. But what I have found that if you're going 30 miles per hour or above and you run off the pavement, if you turn the wheel more than a quarter of a turn, more than 4 or 5 inches, you're probably going to shoot over the center of the road, right across the roadway into oncoming traffic. That's one of the negative results. That's oversteering. Now, the other negative result would be hitting the wrong pedal and hitting the accelerator and trying to gas out of the problem, and you're not able to, because the slope of the soft shoulder is so great, you're just not able to control the vehicle, and you go further deep into the right side of the roadway. You can never regain control. You just get sucked off to the right. So let's take a look at running off the pavement. Let's see if I've got this queued up.
Drifting onto the gravel shoulder of a highway can lead to a serious collision.
The uneven traction could cause you to lose control of your vehicle and send you into the ditch.
In this situation, don't make any quick movements. Making a quick change or abruptly moving back onto the pavement could send your vehicle into the path of oncoming traffic.
A head-on collision could occur because of overcorrecting. You should grip the steering wheel firmly and slowly ease off the gas, but do not brake. When you feel you have control of the vehicle, check your mirrors, signal, and ease back onto the highway when safe.
If the drop-off to the shoulder is steeper than usual, slow down even more and steer back onto the pavement at an even sharper angle.
So you can see that the pavement was pretty even. So it wasn't really that much of a drop-off. So you can see it's not that big of a deal. Now, another negative result of coming back off the shoulder onto the pavement, especially if it's more than a couple inches, is that you could scrape the side of your tire on the edge of the pavement, and that's going to cause a possible blowout. That's when you have sudden loss of control of the vehicle. Now, this is what I want you to write down. The vehicle will always pull to the side of the front tire. Okay, makes sense. Front right, pulls right. Front left, pulls left. So between the two tires, right or left, which one is worse? Right or left? I want you to put it in the comments so I know that you're here and paying attention, that you haven't checked out. Now hold the steering wheel tightly because the car is going to pull in the direction of the blowout. Take your foot off the gas pedal. Okay. Now, whenever you see any wording in the state manual where it says steer straight, what they're saying is stay in your lane. Don't think of straight as linear. Think of straight as just being centered between the yellow line and the white line. Once you have control of the vehicle at a lower speeds, probably at 30 or below, that is when you're going to really start to brake. So you're really just steering for the first 4 or 5 seconds, having control of the vehicle. Now, because of a blowout, the car will slow down more severely than if you had it fully inflated. Now, the back tire, okay, if it blows, doesn't matter which one, it's going to fishtail from side to side. Pull over to the side of the road because you know that the next thing you're going to have to do is going to be changing a tire. Hey, everybody's getting it correct. It is the left tire. Absolutely. Left tire, left tire. Everybody's answering correctly. Good to see. Perfect. Good job. Now, I don't have some of these videos. I don't know where they went. I wasn't able to load them. So we're not going to be able to see that at all. I want you to write down what would be other causes of blowouts. Low tire pressure. Whenever you hit a pothole and you've got low tire pressure, below what's recommended, probably by about 10 to 15%. So if we're talking about being inflated around 34 and you're down around 28, 27, that's, about 15% or so below what's recommended for your tire pressure. That's a good chance you're going to have a tire blowout. Now, wear and tear, cuts and bulges, it weakens the integrity of the tire. So going over rough roads, potholes, like I said, with a low tire pressure, it's going to be a main cause of blowouts. Anything that's in the roadway, like that's sharp, nails, glass, anything metal, is going to probably cause a blowout. So let's talk about tire pressure. We knew when we saw the first video, the first week, about knowing your vehicle, how to find tire pressure. We know that it could be found on the side of the tire, but the best way to do this is opening up the driver's side door, and on the door jamb, there's going to be what the car manufacturer recommended tire pressure is. So here it says check on a monthly basis. You basically lose about 1 pound per square inch of pressure per month. And as temperature gets colder, as it drops 10 degrees, you're going to lose about 1 psi. Don't rely on the car's tire pressure monitoring sensor because it's just not going to help you. Use a gauge. I would highly recommend getting a tire gauge and just throwing it in your glove compartment. So know your specs. The common misconception is that the correct tire pressure is listed on the sidewall of the tire. That figure is actually the maximum pressure for the tire. It's way higher than the pressure should be when using. So it's going to probably conflict with what we find on the side of the car. Okay, know which is which. Cars that have at least 3 separate pressure ratings, 1 for the front, 1 for the rear, and 1 for the spare. So I do want you to write that down, is understand, read the whole placard that's on the card. Know it from the manual. Understand that front and rear will probably be different tire pressure, and you want to have that accordingly. And then if you follow this, your tires will last longer, you'll have a better ride, you'll have better fuel economy, all the things that we had talked about in the first week of class. So here's a picture of a worn tire. And as you see, the steel belt, okay, that long worn out area is really a steel belt area, okay? That is a tire that has been blown. Saw that at a tire shop and asked the guy, "Do you mind if I go back and take a picture of some of your bad tires?" And that was one of the worst. Now, one day I was driving with a student, and we came across a car that was off to the side of the road, and they had been driving on a flat tire for so long that the rubber had actually gone right off the rim of the tire. Okay, you never want that to happen. This is what it looks like from the side. Okay, what is going to happen here is you're going to lose the ability for your rim to hold a seal for a new tire that will have to be put on. So what I want you to write down, the moment you know you have a flat tire, look for a safe place to pull over to have it changed. The longer that you drive on a flat tire, a blowout, you're going to do exactly what we see in this picture. The rubber of the tire will actually work its way off the rim, and then once you're driving on the rim will be ruined. That rim has an edge, and once that edge is beveled, start to get cracked or beat up, pitted, you have to get a whole new rim. So you're not paying just for a new tire, but now you're paying for a new rim, and it can be costly. New tires probably going to cost you between $100 and $250, as we said before, and a rim probably a little bit less than that. So let's talk about changing a tire. Okay, I found this to be interesting. I found a tire commercial. You may have seen, it's pretty old. You may have seen it on TV, but I've got 3 quick tire commercials, and each one basically covers what shouldn't happen when you change a tire. So let me show you. Okay, as you can see, pretty humorous aspects of changing a tire, and the reason why they spelt it wrong is it's a European commercial. But let's talk about the three scenarios that they gave you. Now, the individual that looked like he was very anal, very, specific of having everything lined up just right. You need to remember, don't be so focused only on what you're doing that you need to know what other people are doing around you. Every year, someone is injured or killed where they actually kneel down to, change a tire or work around a vehicle. You have to, be looking as cars are approaching. This is why I think it's not a good idea to change a tire on a roadway. You want to get to a driveway, a rest area, an off-ramp, someplace away from high volume traffic at high speeds. Okay? If you have to do it, then you have to do it, but it's not recommended. Now, I said don't ride on the rim for too long because you're going to ruin it. But my philosophy, it's better to ruin a rim than to lose a limb. So if it means still driving down the road a little bit further to find a safer place, I'd probably do that. The other one, the redneck, okay, out on a country road, jacked up his car. Never get underneath a vehicle, especially if a lug nut basically rolls underneath. You just never know when you just kind of hit the car while it's jacked up. It will fall off pretty easily, especially on some of these real small jacks. So get a stick or something to kind of, push it off to the side. Never work underneath a vehicle that is up on a jack. And the last one, okay, of a woman, it's kind of far-fetched, but the thing is that if you're using so much strength that you're losing grip of the lug wrench, it will push you or throw you to some place where you could injure yourself. I don't think you're going to go over a guardrail, but you may lose contact and you could just go backwards 4 or 5 feet into oncoming traffic or go down a hill or something like that. So I just thought that was kind of funny, kind of make class just a little bit lighthearted here. So let's write down the steps to take. And this is different than you probably will find in the textbook, and they don't even really cover it in the manual. So I want you to write this down. Number one, and we've already talked about this, safe place. So we talked about driveways, parking lots, malls, things like that. The second one is get everyone out of the vehicle. I know this is nice weather, so there's no problems with people getting out of the vehicle. But when we start talking about changing a tire in January and February, and it's snowing or it's raining out, people will say, I'll stay still. Let me stay in the vehicle. No, no, no. Nobody can be in the vehicle. Everybody has to be out. The other thing, let me get my whiteboard here, and I want to show you basically where you should be positioned. So let me kind of get out of here and put it on the board. So let me get out of here for a second. And let me make a car that's on the breakdown lane. And I'll give you 3 positions. All right? So here we are. Okay? We're off on the breakdown lane. We said get everybody out of the vehicle. You have 3 choices. Do you make everybody go to the front of the car, the side of the car, or behind the car? All right? So put it in your comments on the board, and I'll get to it in a moment. So tell everybody, stand out, position number 1. Have everybody get out, go to position number 2, or everybody get out and go to position number 3. So I'll go over that in just a moment as I finish up what they've said. Triangles, flashers, anything to warn people that you have a problem. Now, trigging the tire or trigging the wheel, what that basically means is put something that is heavy, like a big rock or a log, opposite the tire that you're changing. So if you're changing your back right tire, you're going to put something in front of your front left tire, because an uneven amount of pressure and weight is going to be forced to the left front part of your car. So you don't want the car to roll. And this is really probably more important for manual transmission vehicles than it is for automatic vehicles. Take the wheel cover off. They're metal or plastic, so be careful. There is a, probably should have brought it in tonight. I should have gotten out of the car. There's an edge that you'll, on the lug wrench, that will help pry it off. It's like a screwdriver, and lug nuts will always go lefty loosey, righty tighty. Let's see what everybody's saying. Everybody's saying 1, 1, 1. We've got a couple threes. Nobody for 2. Nobody. Okay, the correct answer is 3. Okay, so write that down in your notes. The correct position to be in is 3. And Riley is correct that you're warning other people that you're changing a tire. And the other thing, let me get out of here for a second. Just remember when they talked about train tracks, about running off at a 45-degree angle? If someone was to go off the road and hit your vehicle, all the glass and debris will hit anybody at position 2 or position number 1. But if you're in position number 3 and a car goes off the road and hits your car, these people will be safe. And like what Riley said in the comments, you're basically just trying to tell people, slow down, push them off, especially if you don't have warning triangles or hazard lights, flashes going. That's going to be helpful. Place the jack on firm ground and jack the vehicle up 2 or 3 inches off the ground so you can put the new tire on. Now, the spare that you have in the back is either going to be a donut, which is a really small, thin replica of your tire, or you're going to have a full size. If it's a full size tire, make sure it's fully inflated, and you can drive with that as long as you want, as many miles as you want. But remember, once you take out your spare, if you have another flat, you don't have something to replace it with. So do remember that. The donut tire, you should probably replace it within 75 to 100 miles. Could you go further? Absolutely. But because it's smaller, you're not going to get the same type of traction that you would with a regular sized tire. So remove the lug nuts, keep them in your pocket. That's going to keep them safe. You're not going to lose them. It's going to keep them warm when it's really, really cold. Lift off the tire and replace it with the spare. Okay, so you've put it on. It's kind of heavy. Now, how do you put the lug nuts back on? Now, I'm going to go back to the board here so you can see how to put the tire back on. So let me take a moment to draw a tire, and you have 5 holes. So it doesn't matter which hole you start with, but if you start over here, you want to skip a hole. So I skip this hole, okay? So I go from here to here. Now I have to skip another hole. So I go over there. Now I skip another hole. Then I skip another hole. So basically what you're making is a star pattern. So in your notes, write down lug nuts go on, spacing with a gap. So a hole gap. So wherever you start with, go to the other tire. Go to another hole with a gap in between them. So skip one of the holes. Never do the one side by side on either side. So don't go clockwise or counterclockwise. Now try to screw the lug nuts on finger for, as tight as you possibly can, and then lower the vehicle and tighten it the rest of the way. I still use the lug wrench a little bit while it's up on the jack, but I just do it a little bit because I don't want it to come off the jack. But everybody here should be able to change a tire. It may be something that we could do, later in August or something when we get near the end of our driving, that it may be something kind of cool to do, to loosen a lug nut or something. See if you can do it. The other thing I want you to write down, if you hate changing tires, Get a AAA membership. That's the best way. They'll come out and do it for you, right? That's the nice thing. So if it's bad weather, let them suffer in the snow and the rain. Okay, skidding. And we're going to talk tomorrow night about winter weather and hydroplaning. So skidding is when your tires don't grip the road any longer. The thing that we had already mentioned tonight, stay off the brakes, okay? You need to steer out of your problem. And you're always going to steer in the direction that your back end is moving. So let me get out of here. So when your back end is moving in one direction, you're steering. So if the back end goes to the right, you're steering to the right. If the back end goes to the left, you're steering to the left. Okay? So it's wherever the back end is going, you're steering. Back end left, steer left. Back end right, steer right. And the other thing you should write down, there will always be a counter steer. So if the car swings out in one direction, it's going to take you probably 2 or 3 counter steers before you finally get control of your vehicle. All right? So that would be an emergency. A lot of times people think skidding is leaving that rubber on the roadway. That is called a skid. But skidding basically is loss of traction. You may not have any rubber, okay, left on the pavement on a skid, but your back end is flying out. That's what it's called skidding. So don't always think that your tires are leaving marks. Don't have anything on skidding either, I don't believe. Oh, how to change a tire. Let's go back. I forgot the real way to change a tire. Here's a tire company that really gets into it. So before we talk about flooded engine, let me show you how to change a tire.
Make sure your vehicle is parked in a safe location. A low-traffic parking lot or large paved pullout well off any busy street or road is ideal. Set the emergency brake first. If you have a manual transmission, put your car in first gear. If your vehicle is an automatic, just put it in park. Next, place wheel chocks or big rocks behind and in front of the tire opposite the one being changed. This will prevent vehicle movement and the jack from slipping while we work. Next, find your lug wrench, jack, and spare tire. These tools are often located in the trunk under the carpeting. Your vehicle's manual will indicate exactly where they are. This only applies if your vehicle has a hubcap. Many hubcaps just snap into place, but some are held on by the lug nuts. You can usually pry them off using something flat like a screwdriver. If your vehicle has covers over the lug nuts, be sure to remove them as well. Loosen the first lug nut by rotating the wrench counterclockwise just once without removing the lug nut entirely. Then, loosen the second nut directly opposite of the first one, and then the one opposite that, like a star-shaped pattern. If the lug nuts are tight, use your body weight to push down. Look in your owner's manual for where to position the jack. It's often under the frame near the tire with the flat, but not always the case. Our jack should be aligned with a thin seam line that runs under the vehicle. The factory jack has a notch cut out of it for a specific fit. Next, insert the handle and turn it clockwise to raise the car. Lower the jack if at any point your car seems unstable, and never ever get under a car that is only supported by a jack. Now, fully remove the lug nuts and place them in a secure location. Grasp the tire with 2 hands and pull it straight out. Then place it under the car. This is a precautionary measure just in case the jack slips. Remove any aftermarket accessories like hub rings at this point. The valve stem on the spare tire should be facing out. Then align it with the wheel studs and push it into the assembly. Tighten one lug nut by hand. Follow the same star pattern used to remove the lug nuts. Remove the flat tire from underneath the vehicle. Turn the jack handle counterclockwise and lower the vehicle. Once the vehicle is firmly grounded, fully tighten the lug nuts using your wrench, again in the star-shaped pattern. Remember to gather your tools back in place. Remove the wheel chucks and place your flat tire in the trunk. Lug nuts and lug bolts should be torqued to factory specs. You can also reach out to a local discount tire for proper torque recommendations for your vehicle. Finally, remember that spare tires are smaller and less capable than regular tires. They should only be used for limited short-distance driving. Visit your nearest discount tire.
Okay, I thought they did a pretty good job with hitting up all the points that we just covered. And I really do like videos. It really kind of helps, put some, meat to what we're talking about, because it's very easy to get lost in all the terminology and what is actually happening. So hopefully this was somewhat helpful to you about changing a tire, because I do believe that everyone should know how to do this. Now, this topic, flooded engine, I don't think you need to know at all. This is something that was in the older manual. This is only for older cars, so I'm not going to even talk about it, except to let you know that if you ever get a chance to drive a car that's like 20 or 30 years old, it may not turn over the first time that you take the key and turn it all the way to the right. If that is the case, okay, what you need to do is to push down on the gas pedal. What you're doing is you're putting gas into the cylinders. There's gas in the cylinders, so when you turn the key, the spark plugs create a spark that will ignite the fuel and start the vehicle. Now, newer cars and everything that's built probably in the last 15, 20 years has fuel injectors. The minute you start to turn the key, a spray of gasoline goes into the cylinders that is able to ignite when you turn it all the way to the right. So no longer are you pushing down the gas pedal before you turn the key. If you mow lawns, and some of you probably have done this at some point, a lawnmower has a prime button. It's the same thing. Before you pull on the ripcord of a lawnmower, you prime, gasoline to get ignited as you start her up, the lawnmower, do the pull. That's the closest thing I can come to replicating what happens in a car. Now, this can happen in every car, depending on what you have for a vehicle. Going through a large puddle, water will get into your around your wheels, into the brake cylinders and around the routers. So what you need to do is to dry them off. So your brakes may sound squeaky. You go to hit the brakes, they don't respond quite the same. The terminology you may hear is they feel spongy. So that means, wow, this just feels like a different brake. Well, it is. So what you need to do is to lightly accelerate with your right foot while you brake with your left foot. And that is creating friction. That is creating friction. So if you take your two hands right now and rub them together, you're creating friction. So by accelerating while braking, you're warming up that surface area to now give you a better contact with the brake pad, and you're going to stop like you are normally accustomed to. But putting moisture and wet, it will seem spongy, and we call that wet brakes. Brake failure, pump the brake pedal. What usually happens, and this is for older cars, newer cars don't usually have this problem anymore, there gets to be a pocket of air in the brake fluid. There's brake fluid that goes from your cylinder, which is in the engine, to your brake cylinders, and every once in a while when you hit your brakes, for whatever reason, there's a air pocket. And once the pedal hits, or when the cylinders has an air pocket come through, you go to hit the brakes and you just don't stop the car. It just doesn't work. So by pumping the brakes, you're bleeding more fluid back into the cylinders, enabled you to stop the vehicle. Now, if that doesn't work, use the parking brake, but remember to hold the release. Now, on the driver's ed vehicle, it's underneath. So in the driver's ed vehicle, Okay, on most cars, you have it between the bucket seat. It's a lever you pull up on. That's your parking brake, emergency brake. So pull up on it, locks the back tires, okay, then push the button in, release it, okay, because you don't want to lock up the tires because then it's going to throw you into a skid. In the driver's ed car, it's a pedal you push down with your left foot, and then you're going to have to reach down and try to grab the release lever, which is underneath the instrument panel. So it is a little different on different vehicles. Shift to a lower gear is a good idea. That will slow you down. In the driver's ed car, it's a B position. In another car, you'll see an S or an L or a 1 or a 2. If that still doesn't work, and we're going down in probably the order of that you would actually use this, look for something to sideswipe. Anything that will slow the car down. Bushes, go up a hill. But remember, anything that you hit, please write this down. Anything that you hit, you will have to replace. So that means you're repairing cars, you're repairing light poles, fire hydrants. So look for anything that's Mother Nature. Mother Nature will never send you a bill. All right? But the town of Durham, if you go over a fire hydrant, will probably cost you $10,000, $15,000. Okay, pretty expensive for slowing your car down. Also warn people by beeping your horn, flashing your lights. Once you do stop, pull over the side of the road, turn off the vehicle, call for help. Consider yourself lucky, okay, that you didn't do more damage. Okay, brake failure doesn't happen. It's only happened in the driver's ed vehicle once in probably the last 15 years. We were going down co-drive. We had some braking, but it wasn't normal braking. There was a problem in the computer system. So there was nothing that we could do to make it better. All these things did help a little bit to slow down the vehicle, but a whole new computer system had to be replaced in order for us to get our braking back. In some emergencies, you're going to get hit, all right? So the first thing I want you to write down, if you know that you're going to get hit, try to slow down your car as quickly as possible. Try to lessen the impact. Because if you're going 60 and another car is going 60 miles per hour, that's like hitting a brick wall at 120 miles per hour. You're adding the speeds of both vehicles. But if both vehicles were able to bring their speed down by half, then it's like hitting something at 60. And given the choice between 120 and 60, I'll take 60. If you could get it even further than that, I think 40 is what most tests that they do with the National Institute of Insurance when they do crash tests on vehicles. I believe it's around 35 or 40 miles per hour. So if you want to know how well your car would behave in a crash, you could get your crash rating from that institute. And I think it's around 35, 40 miles per hour. And they have found that most cars now can withstand that type of impact. Maybe another option would be to turn quickly. Always go for the shoulder. It says never to the left here, but I don't agree with that. If you know you can make it all the way over to the left, it makes sense to me, go that direction. But remember, you may miss the first car that's coming towards you by going to the left. But depending how far you go over, there could be someone behind them that you don't see, and then you'll get hit by that person. Then it becomes your problem for hitting that person. Sideswiping, as we just mentioned, will reduce the impact and the chance of injury. Just look for good places to do that. Always think of what the repair cost would be, not only to your vehicle, but to other people's property. Speeding up quickly is a last resort. That would probably be more like if you're driving downtown Durham or Dover, someone's coming out of a parking spot. That's where you're speeding up to miss where you're getting hit. Maybe going through an intersection where someone's running a light. You see that they're not slowing down, speeding up so you don't get hit. Okay, probably a smart move, but this would probably be an advanced type of driving maneuver. Here's a person who got hit. He got hit on both sides. So sometimes it's not skill that gets you out of trouble. It's just plain luck. And sometimes it's good to be lucky. If your vehicle overheats, pull over to the side of the road. Now, in the car, you have a temperature gauge. So look for that. And that was part of your midterm. That was a question. Okay, it's going to be C for cold, H for hot. It's going to be a light that may be coming on. It's telling your car is getting to a higher temperature than it needs to be. Never go off to the side of the road to loosen the radiator cap to put any type of coolant into your vehicle. It's only going to ruin the engine. You've got to let your car cool down completely, so you're looking at least probably a couple hours. Probably, once again, sending for help. It's nothing that you're going to be able to do if you're sprung a leak in a hose or it's leaking through the radiator. You're not going to be able to fix it. But if your car is showing signs that it's overheating, it is going to ruin the engine the more that you drive with that. The only thing that I can tell you that you can do that will help it is by putting your heater on high with your windows put down in order to cool off the engine. So when you're taking heat from the engine compartment and bringing it into the passenger compartment, it will drop the needle down slightly, okay, while you probably drive to a place that is safe to get towed from or drive to a place that can actually work on your vehicle. Like I said, I'm not using a lot of the videos that I normally do if we were live in a classroom. Vehicle plunging in water doesn't happen that often. Right now we're getting flash flooding with some of these storms, so it's not plunging into water, but cars are getting lifted up. Once you start getting water that's above your floorboard, your car will be lifted off. You're thinking, oh my goodness, there's no way. This car cannot float, okay? If most people don't believe that a car that weighs, a ton or a half a ton can actually float in water. It can. It actually can for a short period of time. But also remember that it's only going to sink for 3 to 10, it's going to float for 3 to 10 minutes, and then it goes nose first. It goes where the engine is. Look for an air pocket in the car, usually in the back. Try to open a door or crack a window to try to get out, because the moment you lose your electrical power, door locks aren't going to be working, and your windows aren't going to be working if you've got power windows. So you want to alleviate the pressure by opening the windows or opening the door, and then planning your course of action to get away from the vehicle. Now, most cars plunge in water, at least in New England, not by going over bridges or going through floods like we had today in some areas of the country, but actually it is going off the road into rivers and creeks. It's not like lakes. Lakes probably would be falling through the ice. Okay, and surprisingly, a lot of people put their vehicles out on the ice. So here's a car that went off the side, okay, with a river. That doesn't look like a very safe bridge. So number one, if you're in a car and you're going over a bridge like that, think twice, because there's no guardrails. And it looks like there's snow. So it's going to probably be pretty slippery. When I mentioned about cars going through the ice, I did know Sarah Edgley. I knew her parents. We used to go to the same church here in Rochester. And Sarah was in a wheelchair all her life after the incident. She could not speak. She could only communicate with an alphabet board. As you can see, that she suffered brain injury. She was a quadriplegic. She was trapped in the vehicle in the freezing water. I believe it was in like March that it happened. And you can see by the third paragraph that she was in the water for about 40 minutes. Because of the cold temperatures, I believe that's what saved her life. But being in the water for 40 minutes is what caused the brain damage and causing her to be a quadriplegic. So be very careful when you do choose to bring your vehicle out onto ice, because depending with current and the flow of water, it could get really, really thin on some edges, and especially like March. Depending on how cold that winter was, it could be pretty thin ice. Some of the least common or least severe type of emergencies that we may encounter would be headlight failure. All you got to do is turn on some other type of light to guide you off the road. When they say dimmer switch, what they're talking about is your high beam. So if your low beams are not working correctly, like one of them, put your high beams on, you probably have that. But remember, you're blinding people. I always like carrying an extra pair of bulbs in my car. So whether it be brake lights or headlights, carry extra bulbs in your car, because the time that you're going to need it is the time that everything is closed. Like right now, okay, almost 9 o'clock. I believe that if you were driving around and you noticed that one of your headlights out, you probably couldn't go to Auto Advance or Pep Boys. You might be able to find a light at a Walmart, but even Walmart will probably be closing at 9:30 or 10. So you may not be able to find it at places that you thought. Stuck gas pedal, keep your eyes on the road, shift to neutral. That is the one thing I want you to write down. A stuck gas pedal could be mechanical, so it's happening in the engine, or it could be something like a mat or debris that's underneath the gas pedal that's preventing it from being released fully. But what you don't want to do is to reach down and grab the pedal. Shifting to neutral is by far the first thing that you should do, and to then go to the brake, slow the car down, move to the side of the road, and really try to investigate what you think the problem is. And I think that I do have stuck gas pedal. I do.
Although it is a rare occurrence, your Toyota may experience a sticky accelerator pedal. You should pay attention to the operation of your accelerator pedal. If the accelerator is harder to depress than normal or slower to return, it may be a precursor to a stuck pedal. These vehicles should be parked and a dealer immediately notified. Okay, what should you do if your accelerator pedal sticks? Although it is a rare occurrence, we thought you should know what steps you should take in the unlikely event that it did occur. If your pedal sticks and won't return to its original position when you take your foot off of it, step on the brake with both feet using firm and steady pressure. Don't pump the brake pedal, as it will deplete the effectiveness of the brakes. Then simply shift into neutral, that's N for neutral, and firmly apply the brakes to make a controlled stop on the side of the road. If your Toyota's transmission has a notched shift gate and you're driving in sport mode, step on the brake with both feet using firm and steady pressure. Simply nudge the shifter to the right into drive, D, then forward into neutral, N, and firmly apply the brakes to make a controlled stop on the side of the road in a safe area and shut off the engine. Drivers who cannot put the vehicle into neutral should turn the engine off. This will not cause a loss of steering or braking control, but the power assist to these systems will be lost. If the vehicle has an engine start-stop button, firmly push the button down for at least 3 seconds to turn off the engine. Do not tap the start-stop button. If the vehicle has a conventional key ignition, turn the key to the accessory position, or ACC, to turn off the engine. But do not remove the key from the ignition, as this will lock the steering wheel. If you experience any issues with your accelerator...
So that's just a quick overview of a stuck gas pedal. Power steering failure, grip the steering wheel tightly, because it's going to be very difficult to steer. Yes, the car will still be able to go the direction you want it to do, but it's going to create a lot of pressure. The thing I want you to write down is that once you get the car moving, the higher their speed, the easier it is to steer. The slower you go, like at 5, 10, 15 miles per hour, harder to turn the wheel. But be careful if you're going 40, 50 miles per hour and you have to slow down and make a turn, then it really gets hard to turn. Now, restarting the vehicle, the only thing that this is telling me is that it could be a computer system glitch. You know how sometimes you get that death wheel on your computer? So you got to, restart it, and then you reboot it, and you're fine again. It's going to be something like that. The hood flies up. This normally does not happen. And usually with newer vehicles, it does not happen. But what basically is you've opened up the hood to do something to the engine, and you've put the hood down, but you haven't heard the click. there's a safety latch. There is a clicking noise that means the hood is now secured and won't open up, because you have to go underneath and feel for a hood release in order to lift the hood. It just doesn't go back up automatically. But every once in a while, someone will put the hood down, they won't hear it click, and it will fly up. Now, I believe this is in another country, but here is a person that has a hood flying up. So basically, here we go. Okay, now the car's still moving right now, so he's going to be paying attention to where he's steering. Okay, now I think he's finally bringing the car to a stop. But as you can see, you can't see a thing right now. See, it's still in the road. All right, see there's a little bit of a gap right there underneath the hood. He just never had it secured enough. So that's what it looks like. It will scare you. As you can see, there's no planning. It just flies right up. We've already talked about railroad crossing, so we're not going to talk about that. Windshield wiper failure. We're not talking about blades. Okay, write this down. Windshield wiper failure deals with your wiper motor. Now, one of the things I asked you to do about knowing your vehicle is about fuses. So write down in your notes, if your wipers are not working any longer, you should probably pull over to the side of the road and check your fuses. If the fuse is burnt, if it's burnt out, take a fuse from somewhere else. It's a fuse box. So let's say that it's a 15 amp. Let me get out of here for a second. So let's say that it's a fuse box. So you go to the box, you take out it's a little fuse, piece of plastic. Okay, it looks like a stamp, but it's all plastic. You could tell that it's burnt. Okay, that's why your wipers aren't working. Look for somewhere else, okay, in the box for a 15 amp. If it's a 15 amp, pull it out. Let's say it's from the radio or maybe the dome light, okay, for up above you in the car. Pull it out and then put it in the wiper slot and see if the wipers will work now. That may be all that you need. If it is blades that are creating a problem, carry an extra pair in the trunk. That's going to help you in situations where there's no place to buy wipers late at night, as we said before. Clean off snow and ice from blades, because that's going to create not windshield wiper failure, but vision failure for what you're able to see. Disabled vehicle. I do want you to write this down. I do want you to know this. Pull well off the road for a distance of 200 feet. We're going to see 200 feet quite a bit now through the end of the program. 200 feet is the given distance that we find that most people can handle something that's coming up over a hill, around a corner, and still deal with it safely. So don't park your car on a hill or a curve. Use your parking lights or emergency flashers. That is going to warn people of what's happening. A white cloth, write this down, is symbolic of I have problems. I have mechanical problems. I need help. Red in the wintertime, because if it was white in the wintertime, people wouldn't see it on your car. So a white something cloth, okay? Any on the door handle, on the antenna, any place, is symbolic that you have no power. Your battery is not working. Stay with your vehicle. Be very careful. We're going to talk about this tomorrow. Stay with your vehicle till help arrives, okay? Be very careful about walking late at night and walking alone. I don't care if you're male or female, okay? We live in crazy times. Things can happen. Okay, use flares or reflectors, okay? That's better than just being seen for 200 feet. You have to give an indicator that you're just over the hill or just around a corner. Okay, let's talk about jump starting a vehicle. I'm going to show you, this is a video that I made. It's more like the parallel parking one. There isn't really any narrative to it. It just gave me a chance to make a video. So here's my video about jump starting a vehicle.
success.
Okay, as you can see, it really isn't that involved, jump starting a vehicle. But a couple of things I do want you to write down. First of all, always realize that red is for positive, black is for negative. So when you do hook up your batteries, you're going red positive terminal to red terminal, black terminal to negative black terminal. You never, ever want to get those mixed up. So if you remember anything from that, hooking up positive to positive, negative to negative, and red is positive, black is negative. Make sure that you have a good long jumper cable. You'd be surprised things that you can buy pretty cheaply. So it's not a good gauge of metal for jumping a car. So you want really thick, heavy jumper cables. Make sure that your car is pretty close because some of them aren't very long. And the other thing, make sure that you know where your battery is. You'd be surprised how many people have a hybrid battery and they open up the hood and they can't find their battery. It's in the trunk. Okay, the driver's ed vehicle that you drive with me, the battery that you need to jump is not in the front of the car. It is in the back of the car. So you're going to get confused. Okay, so when I say look at the owner's manual, that is pretty important. The other thing, which is kind of a humorous story about this video, is that yes, that truck had a dead battery. I actually had to jump that truck. So I told my son to use my drone as we videotaped everything so I can make that video. But after we made the video, and I did turn the car off, and I went back out about an hour later, and the battery was dead again. So I had a bad battery. So just remember, every time that you jump a battery and you think, oh, I got my car started again, there's a good chance if you go someplace and turn the car off and come back out an hour later, you're not going to start the battery. It's a bad battery. You're going to have to replace the battery. Okay, and it wasn't too difficult. I went to Walmart, got the same size. I looked at the battery. They had a number on it. So you just don't buy one battery for every car. So look at the owner's manual. The type of battery that you need will be listed there, or just bring in the battery to the auto body shop place, and they will give you a like battery that you can use to replace. Vehicle on fire doesn't happen that often. Basically, it's a short circuit in the electrical system, so pull off the side of the road. What I want you to write down is that when you smell smoke, fire is probably soon to come. So consider yourself lucky. Something smells funny. Pull over to a roadway. Don't pull over to a gas station. I have a video of, I don't have it for you tonight, but a person pulled over near a gas station. Not a wise move. Shut off the engine. Get everyone out of the vehicle. A blanket or a fire extinguisher may, if it's a small fire from the engine, could be used. But at that point, your car is totaled, just walk away from it, let it burn. The other reason why a car could catch on fire is that in an accident, because your car is being twisted and turned, a lot of the areas and hoses that are connected will become loose. And once it touches heat, if enough heat, and if there's a spark, that's going to create an engine fire. So let me show you something. This was from an insurance company lawyer about fires and about how they happen.
Hello, this is Todd Tracy from the Tracy Law Firm in Dallas, Texas with another Todd Talks. Today I want to talk with you about the concept that vehicles should never catch on fire following an accident. So why does a vehicle catch on fire following an accident? Well, first of all, if the fuel tank is breached because of a rock, because the drive shaft explodes, because the drive shaft actually moves over and contacts the fuel tank, that can cause a hole in the tank, which can cause a fire. The second type of accident that we see when a fire occurs is when a fuel line actually moves over because the engine has shifted over. There's usually 6 to 8 inches of extra fuel line space. However, if you get involved in a frontal offset impact, or what's commonly known as an oblique impact, the engine can shift over 12 inches, and if the fuel lines separate, that can cause a fire. Lastly, we see a lot of impacts where the impact is on the outside of the frame rails where the batteries are located. And as the impact occurs, the battery actually gets contacted. The acid in the battery literally catches on fire and catches the entire engine compartment on fire. If your client has suffered burn injuries, or they've suffered...
So you can see, it doesn't happen that often, but in a crash, it could. So try to get out of the car as quickly as possible. In a car crash, you're not going to be able to move it, but if there's any chance you could get it someplace that's safer, by all means, try to do that. And that is a quick overview of driving emergencies. They basically go into, in your reading that you had at the end of the chapter on page 323 on protecting yourself, and they're talking about calling the emergency numbers and police, and we really didn't get into that because we're going to deal with that in another class. But I do want you to go to a Facebook page. I do have a worksheet that I want you to do, and I want you to work on that for the rest of tonight. That will take us right to our 9:30 time. So I want you to do chapter 15, okay, the handout that I have on our Facebook page. And then tomorrow, make sure that you read chapter 13, and I believe tomorrow will leak into Thursday's class. So we're going to have to push the alcohol into Monday and Tuesday. So once again, we're getting pushed just a little bit, but I got plenty of time to cover everything. So we'll see you tomorrow. We'll be talking about driving in bad weather. That's hazardous driving conditions. We'll talk about snow, ice, sleet, rain, hail, dust storms, wind, all that stuff, fatigue, all that stuff is what we're going to be covering tomorrow. So that is it for tonight. Hopefully you took some good notes, and everything that we cover from now on is going to be more heavily tested on your final. So this last half is more factual and steps that we're going to be covering. A lot of what we covered before was more on the rules of the road and what you really can't and can do. So now we're just talking more about situations that you may not encounter, but if you do, this is what you should do. So take good notes and you should be fine. All right, have a good night, and we'll see you tomorrow.